Welcome to the Longevity Lab. I'm your host, Sarah. Have you ever noticed that the jars in your pantry seem a little tighter than they used to? Or maybe you felt a bit more winded after a short walk to the park? It's easy to brush these things off as just getting older, but what's happening beneath the surface is more significant than you might think. We aren't just losing energy, we are losing our physical foundation. Did you know that after the age of 50, we can lose up to 1% of our muscle mass every single year? It's a silent process called sarcopenia. If we don't intervene, by the time we hit 70, a third of our strength could simply be gone. Joining me today to solve this mystery is Dr. Michael, a leading specialist in geriatric nutrition. Dr. Michael, welcome. Why is this muscle loss so dangerous for us as we age?
Thank you, Sarah. It's a pleasure to be here. To answer your question, muscle isn't just about looking fit or lifting heavy weights. For someone in their 60s or 70s, muscle is the currency of independence. It's what keeps you from falling, what keeps your metabolism running, and even how your body regulates blood sugar. When we lose muscle, we lose our metabolic sink. This makes us more prone to type 2 diabetes, frailty, and most importantly, a loss of mobility. The tragedy is that many people think they are eating healthy, but they are unintentionally starving their muscles. They are caught in what I call the protein puzzle.
The protein puzzle. That sounds like something many of our listeners are struggling with without even knowing it. I hear from people all the time who say, Sarah, I eat meat, I have eggs for breakfast, I'm doing fine, but they still feel weaker. Why is there a disconnect? Why doesn't the protein we ate in our 30s work the same way in our 60s?
That is the heart of the issue. As we age, our bodies develop something called anabolic resistance. Think of it like a rusty door. In your 20s, a little bit of protein could easily swing that door open and trigger muscle growth. But at 60, that door is stuck. You need a much stronger push, more protein and higher quality protein just to get the same muscle-building signal. If you don't provide that extra push, your body starts breaking down its own muscle tissue to get the amino acids it needs for vital organs. You are literally consuming your own strength from the inside out.
That's a sobering thought. We are consuming our own strength. But how do we know if we're already in the danger zone? Are there specific signs beyond just feeling a bit tired?
Absolutely. Watch for things like your walking speed. If you find yourself naturally slowing down while crossing the street, that's a red flag. Also pay attention to rebound time. If a minor flu or a small injury leaves you bedridden for much longer than it used to, it's often because you don't have the muscle reserves to help your immune system fight back. But here's the good news. This isn't an inevitable slide. We can push back. But to do that, we have to throw out the old nutritional rule books.
Throwing out the rule book, I like the sound of that. But if the old rules are broken, what are the new ones? How much protein do we actually need to stop this thief in its tracks? Stay tuned because Dr. Michael is about to give us the exact numbers that could save your mobility. Welcome back. We were just talking about how our bodies become resistant to building muscle as we age, that rusty door analogy Dr. Michael used. So, Dr. Michael, let's get into the specifics. For decades, we've been told that the recommended dietary allowance, or RDA, for protein is about 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight. For a 160-pound person, that's roughly 60 grams a day. Is that still the gold standard?
In a word, no. For the aging population, that 0.8 number is barely enough to prevent malnutrition, let alone prevent muscle loss. It's like putting the minimum amount of oil in an old engine and expecting it to run a marathon. Modern clinical research, including the PROT-8 study, suggests that healthy older adults actually need between 1.2 and 1.5 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. If you're dealing with a chronic illness or recovering from surgery, that number might even go up to 2.0 grams.
Wow, so we are talking about nearly doubling what many people think is normal. If I'm that 160-pound person, I should be aiming for closer to 90 or 100 grams of protein a day. That sounds like a lot of food. How does a person even begin to track that without it feeling like a full-time job?
It can feel overwhelming, but don't think of it as just more meat. Think of it as targeted nutrition. The key isn't just the total amount, it's the quality. Not all proteins are created equal. When we talk about muscle, we have to talk about an amino acid called leucine. Think of leucine as the key that fits into the lock of that rusty door we mentioned. Without enough leucine in a single meal, the muscle-building switch simply doesn't turn on. You could eat a small amount of protein, but if it doesn't hit that leucine threshold, your body just uses it for energy rather than building your biceps or your quads.
Leucine. Okay, I'm making a note of that. Where do we find this key? Is it only in expensive supplements, or can we get it from our kitchen?
It's readily available in high-quality animal proteins like whey, Greek yogurt, lean beef, and fish. For my vegan or vegetarian listeners, you can find it in soy and beans, but you have to eat much larger quantities to reach that same leucine trigger. This is where many people go wrong. They might have a salad with a few chickpeas and think they've checked the protein box. But for a 65-year-old, that meal might only provide 10 grams of protein, which isn't enough to trigger muscle protein synthesis. You're essentially stuck in neutral.
So it's not just about the total grams at the end of the day. It's about hitting a specific trigger amount in each meal. This brings us to a huge mistake I see people making all the time, especially in the US and Europe, the backloaded diet. We have toast for breakfast, a light sandwich for lunch, and then a massive steak for dinner. Dr. Michael, why is this one big meal approach failing our muscles?
That is the million-dollar question. Your body can't store protein for later the way it stores fat or carbohydrates. If you eat 60 grams of protein at dinner, your body can only process about 30 grams for muscle repair at one time. The rest, it gets oxidized or turned into urea. Meanwhile, your muscles were starving all morning and afternoon. You've left your muscle factory closed for 18 hours a day.
That makes so much sense. We're oversaturating at night and starving during the day. So what does the perfect daily distribution look like? We'll dive into the concept of protein pacing and the golden breakfast in the next segment. We're back on the Longevity Lab. Dr. Michael, before the break, you mentioned that our bodies can't store protein. This means the way we've been eating, a light breakfast and a heavy dinner, is actually working against us. You called it protein pacing. Tell us, how should we be spreading our protein out to keep that muscle factory open all day long?
Protein pacing is a game changer for anyone over 50. Instead of the lopsided approach, you want to aim for what I call the rule of 30. Try to get approximately 25 to 30 grams of high-quality protein at every major meal, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. When you do this, you provide a steady stream of amino acids to your muscles. It keeps the muscle protein synthesis signal active throughout the day. Think of it like watering a plant. You wouldn't dump 5 gallons of water on a flower once a week. It would drown. You give it a little bit every day so it can soak it up.
The rule of 30. I love that. But I have to be honest, 30 grams of protein at breakfast is a huge challenge for most people. I usually see people reaching for a bagel, a bowl of cereal, or maybe just a cup of coffee. How do we transform a standard breakfast into a golden breakfast without feeling like we're eating a Thanksgiving dinner at 8 a.m.?
It's easier than you think, but it does require a shift in mindset. A standard egg has about 6 grams of protein, so 2 eggs only give you 12 grams, still far short of the 30-gram goal. To hit the target, you might have those 2 eggs, but add a side of Greek yogurt or a scoop of high-quality whey protein mixed into your oatmeal. Greek yogurt is a secret weapon. A single cup can have 15 to 20 grams of protein. Another option is smoked salmon or even adding some lean turkey to your morning routine. The goal is to get that leucine trigger pulled first thing in the morning to stop the muscle breakdown that happens while you sleep.
I've started adding Greek yogurt to my morning routine, and I've noticed a huge difference in my hunger levels too. I'm not reaching for snacks at 10 a.m. anymore. Is there a connection between protein and satiety as we age?
Absolutely. Protein is the most satiating macronutrient. For seniors who might be struggling with weight gain or creeping belly fat, increasing protein is the most effective way to feel full while protecting muscle. When you hit that 30-gram threshold, your brain receives a signal that you are truly nourished. But let's look at the other side of the coin. Many of my patients say, "Dr. Michael, I have a sensitive stomach. I can't digest heavy meat 3 times a day." This is a real concern, as our digestive enzymes naturally decrease.
That's a great point. Digestion can be a bottleneck. If we can't break down the protein, it doesn't matter how much we eat. What are your recommendations for someone with a delicate digestive system? Do they have to stick to liquid diets, or are there better whole food options?
You don't have to live on shakes, but you do have to be strategic. Cooking methods matter. Slow-cooked meats, stews, and ground meats are much easier to digest than a tough steak. Also, fermented proteins like tempeh or kefir are excellent because they come with probiotics that aid digestion. And don't forget about plant-animal combinations. But wait, there's a debate we need to settle. Many people believe plant protein is cleaner, while others swear by animal protein for strength. Which one actually wins when it comes to longevity? We'll settle the plant versus animal debate right after this.
Welcome back to the Longevity Lab. We are tackling the protein puzzle with Dr. Michael. Now, Dr. Michael, we're at a crossroads. In the US and Europe, there's a massive trend toward plant-based diets. People want to be heart healthy and eco-conscious. But when it comes to preventing sarcopenia in your 60s and 70s, can a plant-based diet really hold its own against animal protein?
It's a nuanced answer. Scientifically speaking, animal proteins like dairy, eggs, fish, and poultry are complete proteins. They contain all the essential amino acids in the right proportions, and they are generally higher in leucine. For an older adult, animal protein is more efficient. You can get your 30 grams of protein and your leucine trigger from a relatively small piece of salmon or a cup of cottage cheese.
And for the plant-based folks, if they're eating lentils, beans, and quinoa, what's the catch?
The catch is volume and digestibility. To get the same 2.5 grams of leucine found in a small scoop of whey protein or a piece of chicken, you might have to eat 5 or 6 cups of quinoa or 3 cups of lentils. For an older person whose appetite might be decreasing, eating that much fiber and volume in one sitting is often impossible. Plus, plant proteins have anti-nutrients like phytates that can slightly hinder protein absorption. However, this doesn't mean you can't be a healthy, muscular vegan at 70. It just means you have to be much more calculated. You often need to supplement with plant-based protein powders like pea or rice protein to hit those targets without the digestive distress of massive food volumes.
So it's about efficiency. If you choose plant-based, you have to work a little harder to solve the puzzle. I also want to touch on something you mentioned earlier, inflammaging. It's a buzzword in Europe right now. How does our choice of protein affect this chronic inflammation that seems to accelerate aging?
This is where fish and plant proteins shine. Red meat, if processed or high in saturated fat, can contribute to inflammation if eaten in excess. On the other hand, cold water fish like sardines, mackerel, and salmon provide protein plus omega-3 fatty acids, which actively fight inflammaging. I always tell my patients, eat things that swam or grew in the sun. If you balance your animal protein with plenty of colorful vegetables, you get the muscle-building benefits without the inflammatory downside.
That's a great mantra. Eat things that swam or grew in the sun. But Dr. Michael, we've talked a lot about what goes into the body, but we know that protein alone isn't a magic bullet. If you eat all the protein in the world but just sit on the couch, does that protein actually turn into muscle?
Unfortunately, no. Protein provides the bricks, but you still need the construction workers to build the wall. Without a physical stimulus, your body is less efficient at using that protein. But here's the secret. You don't need to be a bodybuilder. There's a very specific type of movement that acts like a synergist with your protein intake.
I think I know where you're going with this, resistance training. But for many seniors, the word weights sounds intimidating or even dangerous. How do we combine protein with movement safely? We'll break down the minimum effective dose of exercise for longevity in our final segment. We are in the final stretch of the Longevity Lab. We've covered the why, the how much, and the when of protein. Now, Dr. Michael, let's talk about the how. You mentioned that protein provides the bricks, but we need the construction workers. How do we get those workers to show up, especially if we haven't been to a gym in 20 years?
It's all about the signal. When you lift something moderately heavy or create tension in your muscles, you send a chemical signal that says, "We need to be stronger." This makes your muscles much more sensitive to the protein you eat for the next 24 to 48 hours. For someone starting out, this doesn't mean a 100-pound barbell. It can be as simple as sit to stands from your favorite chair. Do 10 reps 3 times a day. Or use resistance bands while watching the news. These small acts of resistance are the invitation for the protein to enter the muscle cells.
I love that. An invitation for the protein. So if I have my golden breakfast with 30 grams of protein and then do some light resistance bands or a brisk walk with some hills, I'm essentially doubling the benefit.
Exactly. You are creating a pro-growth environment in your body. And remember, the goal isn't just to have big muscles. The goal is functional longevity. It's being able to pick up your grandkids, carry your own groceries, and travel the world without needing a wheelchair.
Protein is the fuel for your freedom.
That is such a powerful way to look at it. Protein is the fuel for your freedom. Before we go, Dr. Michael, could you give our listeners 3 simple, actionable steps they can take today to start solving their own protein puzzle?
Certainly. Step 1. The breakfast flip. Stop having a low-protein breakfast. Aim for 30 grams of protein within an hour of waking up. Step 2. The quality check. If you're eating plant-based, ensure you're using a supplement or combining sources to hit that leucine trigger. If you eat meat, prioritize fish and lean sources to keep inflammation low. And Step 3. The resistance habit. Find 5 minutes a day to put some tension on your muscles, push-ups against the kitchen counter, squats, or using bands. Do these 3 things and you'll feel the difference in your energy and strength in as little as 3 weeks.
3 weeks to a stronger you. That is a challenge worth taking. Dr. Michael, thank you so much for joining us and shedding light on this silent thief of sarcopenia. You've made the complex science of the protein puzzle feel very solvable.
It was my pleasure, Sarah. Remember, it's never too late to start building your foundation. Your future self will thank you for the protein you eat today.
And thank you to all our listeners. You have the tools, you have the science, and now you have the plan. Go out there and reclaim your strength. I'm Sarah, and this has been the Longevity Lab. We'll see you in the next episode, where we'll dive into the secrets of the circadian rhythm and why sleep is your immune system's best friend. Until then, stay strong and stay healthy.